So testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, welcome to part 3. And in part 2, I was talking about the mitochondria and how it serves as the primary measuring instrument for the fixed datum that is glycolysis. Meaning that glycolysis, which is the breakdown of glucose, basically all the way to pyruvate or the citric acid cycle, forms a fixed metabolic process. And that every other metabolic process in the body, every other pathway, uses that fixed process as a reference, because when nature wants to build a complex system, it uses the sixes as references. And that way, by knowing where all the sixes are and the multiples of sixes, it knows exactly how simple everything is, even though what you're looking at is an extremely complex organization. From the point of view of nature, it is very simple. That's how the complexity of a human being is mind-boggling when you're looking at it without understanding organized complexity. And yet, within everything, it's very simple. Everything is following a very simplified pathway. Even when biological organisms become stressed, then they revert back to some type of, it's like a remembrance of some kind. And then the sixes get to work. They begin to negotiate new pathways, but always as automorphisms of themselves. And all of this is in my book, but in my book, I don't make reference to any complex system per se, except maybe the distribution of prime numbers. But I write it in such a way that it can be used to explain all complex system behavior. That's why it's called the 5 principles of organized complexity. Now, everything in nature is a complex system. And that's the way nature builds it. That's the way nature builds existence. Everything is complex because everything is interacting with everything else. So it is exhibiting the kind of behaviors associated with complex systems. Now, chaos is when you look at a complex system in isolation. You look at a part of a complex system and you try to isolate it. What you see is chaos. And chaos is a type of dysfunction in some sense. Now, some people describe organized complexity as chaotic. Well, the difference in organized complexity and chaos is that within organized complexity, from the point of view of nature that is controlling it, it's always very simple. When you look at it from outside and you don't understand the control system or the control process, then it looks chaotic because it has no rhyme or reason. In part 1, I told you that the ability to predict the behavior of a dynamism thousands of years into the future, that is the intelligence of people who have developed to such an advanced level. It's not in destroying things. It's not in being able to kill billions of people by developing weapons of mass destruction. This is not intelligent at all. There is no intelligence in that. That is dysfunction as you have it. And dysfunctionality in nature always has one outcome: extinction. Doesn't matter whether it's on a biological level or whether it's on a social level or whatever level it is. Nature does not tolerate dysfunction. Alright? It takes a while to build the momentum for it, but eventually that's what happens once the conviction has been set that this is dysfunctional. Then it's going out. Nature will wind it down one way or the other. Whether you want to use a pathogen or it's some type of rock that slams all the dinosaurs and kills them off, or whatever you want to say, it doesn't matter. The outcome is always the same. Gone. Because nature cannot move forward on that level anymore. That's really what it is. You can interpret this whichever way you want. That is your damn business. Okay? That's really what it is. And I said that, look, these people, the ancient black Africans, they were able to listen, when you look at the Giza plan, all those monuments that were built, what do you think they're for? What do you think those things are? They're control systems, but they're not active control systems. They're very passive, meaning they don't have any power source. They're not impinging on anything, yet they are doing a lot. They have done a lot. The people who constructed them, they are a people who have reached a level of intelligence that is just... I told you, so when you see those type of people, you don't know what you're really looking at. You look at, it's like you're looking at people that somehow they're just different. They're people, yes, but there's a look on them. It's almost like they are so light. There's no burden they are carrying. No hate, no anger, no frustration, no all these things. If you meet such a people, if the current modern so-called big brains of the planet who are looking for aliens everywhere, searching the entire galaxy for radio waves and signatures of one thing, if they meet such people, they will wipe all of them out. It's really what it is. That's why everybody is wondering, when is full disclosure going to happen? What disclosure? What do you want them to tell you? They don't know anything. But there's no advantage in coming out to tell you they don't know anything. They would like all their enemies that they're on this rat race with to think that they are also sophisticated. They have something, secret weapons that they gained from alien technology. Yeah, nonsense. It's the game they play amongst themselves. They don't have anything. They don't have any arrangement with some secret alien organization or reptilian nonsense. These are nonsensical things coming from minds that have already fractured. They cascading through failures of fractures, fracture rates that are just going on and on. Their reality is an insane one, because how do you tell what is real anymore? You don't know. So everything goes. What is a woman? What is a man? Nobody knows anymore. The mind has fractured to a point where it resembles insanity. And you think that all that goes away by saying, oh, these leftist clowns. Oh, look at these leftists. Leftists are crazy. Oh, the right wing, all this conservative. You people don't know what you're talking about. All of you. You are engaged in a collective madness that you can no longer tell anymore. You can't tell what's going on anymore because it is a collective insanity. So everybody has moved collectively towards an insanity. And you are approaching a point where God stares. Can you imagine what that is? Remember the narrative I told you in part 1 and 2? That when the Israelites, the Hebrews, when they were brought to the foot of the mountain, even though their mind had been expanded by seeing all the miracles of 10 plagues, crossing the sea, Kriyas Yamsuf, and yet when they got to the foot of the mountain, what happened? God stared and they all died. Now imagine this reality system on this planet, approaching the point where God stares. What do you think is going to happen? Let's don't even go there. Alright? Let's don't even go there because it's not something I want to think about. These are thoughts I like to push out of my mind because they just make me so angry, as in I don't want those types of angers to sit inside me because I don't understand the reason why people are doing it. I don't see the benefits. They say they do it because they become centi-billionaires, and what does that even mean? What's a billion? $1 billion? What does $1 billion mean? What's a millionaire need? What do you need? You want to have the biggest house, the biggest car, the biggest road. What do those things mean? What do they mean to existence? What does it mean? What does it all mean? To say, oh, I'm the richest man in the world. I have $250 billion. What exactly does it mean? Does it mean that if you build a house that is the biggest house in the world, you will enjoy it more? Does it mean that if you eat a food that is the most expensive food in the world, you will enjoy it more? Does it mean that if you build a painting or a marvelous sight to see or whatever it is you have considered to be your visually pleasing experience, does it mean that because of that you will enjoy it more? What is, because that's the way nature sees things. What exactly are you trying to do with this type of arrangement, this organization that you have created called white supremacy? What is the point? If there's no point, then it's dysfunctional. If the point is because you have a chink, a kind of a hang up inside you because you cannot reconcile yourself to something, that's your business. Because your environment has changed. Nobody is trapped in an ice age anymore. And that has been the state for a long time now. So why are you still behaving as if you're still trapped in an environment where you literally have to eat people and hunt them for food? That's what I call environmental trauma. And it needs to be healed. Okay? And the way to heal it is by exposing it to the truth. It's by knowing what the truth is. Because the God of creation does not reject anything or anyone. Alright, moving on. We also talked about the mitochondria and how it is responsible for some type of fixed datum and how it uses that fixed datum and how the ATP itself, the adenosine triphosphate, how those phosphates represented nature's need for magnesium. It wanted the molecule magnesium. Magnesium is atomic number 12. Carbon is atomic number 6. Nature wants to use that magnesium, but it cannot because of the valency of magnesium. It's too reactive. So it uses the next best thing because there's some elements between magnesium and phosphorus, but silicon won't really give you anything. Aluminium, what can you use it for? It does not fulfill the functional role. So the next best thing is 12 plus 3 because 3 is half of 6. It cannot use beryllium, the third on the periodic table, right? And it already uses nitrogen. It already uses oxygen. It cannot use fluorine, which is the 9th element because it's too reactive. So you can see that the elements represent, they're like functions. They're functional. They're really just geometries of some kind. Carbon is the geometry that reflects the 6s. And so nature uses it. Nature builds it because it's a reflection. Because I know we have an entire atomic orbital theory and all that. We have so many things used to explain these things, from quantum mechanics to classical mechanics and all that. This is my own explanation. It doesn't discount all the others. It's just saying that when you are looking for why, for the reason why, right? Yeah, that's really what it is. There's a supreme intelligence that is running as nature. It's not a random collection of molecules bumping to each other. That supreme intelligence is programmed as the laws of nature. So if you want to understand the reason why nature has the laws that it does, it's because it reflects where it comes from. Organized complexity, blackness, God. That's what it reflects. So you have the elements. What do they reflect? Because at the end of the day, if you listen to my podcast on cosmic inflation, etc., I explained that the universe, what you call the instantiation of the universe, which is the birth of the universe, right? It was the physicalization, if you want to call it that, of order. relational order, because that's what numbers are. Numbers are the ways that we understand relational order, the relationship between things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It doesn't, we have all sorts of numbers now and all that, right? But even if you have planets, you can always number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Even if you have different complex numbers, you can always number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No matter what arrangement of things, once you have a set of things, no matter what they are, you can always number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And nature counts because it needs to have memory. And the reason why nature counts and the reason why nature has memory is because it needs to keep track of what it is doing. And the reason why it does that, this is all in my book, is because it needs to be able to divide things in the most equi-distributional process possible. Everything must get what it's due. It's sort of like equipartition or equidistribution. Everything must be where it is supposed to be to ensure that the universe is spatially flat and stretches